Amid the 2026 Iran conflict, former President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad vanished after a secret U.S.-Israel plan aimed to position him as a transitional leader. Airstrikes hit his residence, confusion spread about his fate, and his disappearance has left the world questioning the collapse of one of the most audacious geopolitical strategies. In 2026, as conflict erupted between the United States, Israel, and Iran, one of the most surprising narratives emerged from the fog of war. The role of Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, known internationally for his defiant rhetoric and hardline political stance, Ahmadinejad had not held formal office since leaving the Iranian presidency in 2013. Yet, during the early phases of the conflict, intelligence reports suggested he was a central figure in a secret plan envisioned by some Western strategists. The idea, according to multiple reports, was audacious. Although Ahmadinejad had been barred from holding office in Iran and politically marginalized, planners in Washington and Jerusalem reportedly considered him as a potential transitional leader for a post-conflict Iran. To outsiders, this might have seemed improbable. How could someone so closely associated with Iran's ideological hardline faction be seen as a stabilizing figure after the regime's dislocation? The answer, strategists argued, was pragmatic rather than ideological. Ahmadinejad's estrangement from the current leadership might have made him an unexpectedly acceptable figure to fill the vacuum left by a decapitated clerical hierarchy. At the onset of the conflict, coordinated strikes targeted key leadership sites across Tehran. Among these, an eastern Tehran compound, formerly Ahmadinejad's residence, was hit. Reports indicate the strike was designed not to kill him, but to neutralize his security detail. According to sources familiar with the planning, the intention was to release him from his enforced confinement and position him as a figure capable of leading a transitional government once the old regime was dislodged. The logic was straightforward from a strategic perspective. A figure with domestic legitimacy, yet distanced from the entrenched theocracy, could bridge the post-conflict transition. But the events that followed would confound planners. Immediately after the strike, uncertainty shrouded Ahmadinejad's status. Early reports suggested he might have been killed alongside his guards. However, these reports were quickly contradicted by his political party and Iranian media, which denied the claims. Weeks passed, and he did not appear in public. Tehran offered no clarity about his condition or location. Intelligence analysts around the world acknowledged that his whereabouts were unknown. As one source put it, his status became shrouded in ambiguity. This ambiguity reflected a series of miscalculations in the original plan. Planners had assumed that Ahmadinejad could be quickly elevated to a transitional leadership role, but the combination of military chaos and a sudden disappearance rendered the plan unworkable. Instead of facilitating a post-war order, the strike inadvertently removed the central figure around which the strategy had been built. Ahmadinejad had neither been liberated nor positioned as a new leader. The plan collapsed before it could be enacted. Analysts and journalists have offered several plausible scenarios for Ahmadinejad's disappearance. Some suggest he was injured and is being kept incommunicado. Others posit he may have been secretly moved out of the country to avoid entanglement in the war. Still others argue that he has chosen to remain underground, wary of being used as a pawn in a conflict of global proportions. While speculation abounds, no confirmation has emerged from Iranian authorities. Ahmadinejad's absence has significant implications. For Iran's remaining leadership, the silence allowed the regime to maintain control over the narrative without acknowledging failures. For Western strategists, the episode illustrates the limits of using personality-driven strategies to engineer political outcomes in complex domestic systems. The notion that someone once so prominent and publicly defiant could be repositioned as a stabilizing transitional leader proved overly optimistic. The 2026 conflict has also highlighted the enduring apathesia of Iran's internal politics. Ahmadinejad, despite his former prominence, has become a ghost figure, a man of immense symbolic significance, but whose physical presence is absent from both Tehran and international public view. This has created an unusual duality, a former president at the center of strategic speculation, yet invisible to the public eye. The origins of the secret plan reveal a calculated, if audacious, approach by intelligence planners. Analysts explain that after the initial strikes removed the top leadership, there would be a narrow window in which someone like Ahmadinejad could command domestic legitimacy while cooperating with foreign powers. The plan accounted for the possibility that the theocratic structure might collapse quickly, leaving a vacuum that could destabilize the region. Ahmadinejad, with his estrangement from current clerical leadership, was seen as a candidate to navigate that vacuum. However, the realities of conflict proved more chaotic than TE. The military strikes intended to facilitate his elevation instead produced confusion and forced strategists to reconsider their assumptions. What was supposed to be a controlled outcome became unpredictable, demonstrating how war can disrupt even carefully planned scenarios. Observers inside Iran have also noted that Ahmadinejad's disappearance underscores broader uncertainties within the country. It is not clear whether the regime continues to protect him, whether he is choosing self-imposed isolation, or whether internal factions within Iran have influenced his movement. This uncertainty has left international observers, including diplomats and intelligence agencies, with limited actionable information about the potential for political realignment. In addition to military developments, the narrative surrounding Ahmadinejad highlights the intersection of war, media, and intelligence. Early reports of his death spread quickly, influencing both domestic and international perceptions. The rapid corrections and denials, however, emphasized the difficulty in obtaining reliable information during active conflict. Analysts suggest that the confusion surrounding his status has likely amplified the strategic ambiguity desired by both Tehran and Western policymakers. Even though Ahmadinejad remains physically absent, his symbolic presence continues to shape discussions about Iran's political future. Some experts argue that his historical prominence gives him residual influence, while others contend that his marginalization prior to the conflict renders him largely irrelevant to the current balance of power. The truth likely lies somewhere in between, with his potential for influence constrained by both physical absence and the evolving context of the war. The consequences of these events extend beyond Ahmadinejad himself. They reveal the limits of attempting to manipulate leadership outcomes through external pressure or military intervention. The failure to implement the plan demonstrates that even high-level intelligence assessments can be undermined by unforeseen variables, including human behavior, operational disruptions, and the inherent unpredictability of war. For historians and political analysts, the 2026 conflict and Ahmadinejad's role within it provide a case study in the interplay of strategy, personality, and circumstance. It offers lessons about the challenges of post-conflict planning, the hazards of relying on singular individuals as instruments of statecraft, and the complex realities of power vacuums in highly centralized systems. In Tehran, the war continues, and the question of Ahmadinejad's status remains unanswered. His silence and invisibility have become part of the larger narrative of the conflict, a symbol of both the unpredictability of warfare and the intricate dynamics of Iranian politics. Analysts remain vigilant, noting that even if he reappears, his role is likely to be shaped not by past prominence alone, but by current geopolitical context, military outcomes, and internal power structures. Ultimately, the story of Mahmoud Ahmadinejad in 2026 is less about a single man and more about the unpredictable intersections between strategy, power, and human decision-making. The secret plan that briefly placed him at the center of Western calculations is a reminder that even carefully conceived strategies are subject to the chaos of real-world events. Ahmadinejad's disappearance exemplifies how uncertainty can redefine the trajectory of political and military initiatives. This episode leaves several enduring questions. How will Iran's leadership navigate the vacuum created by war and strategic miscalculations? What role, if any, will Ahmadinejad play in the future? And how will Western policymakers adjust their understanding of Iran in light of these unexpected developments? While these questions remain open, one fact is certain: Ahmadinejad, a figure once at the pinnacle of Iran's political hierarchy, has become a ghost at the center of one of the most extraordinary strategic episodes of the 21st century. His past prominence, combined with current ambiguity, underscores the complex, often unpredictable nature of modern geopolitics, where individuals and events can swiftly shift from centrality to disappearance, leaving the world to interpret their significance.